I'm live. I hope the signal holds. Today is July the 25th. Each finger is different, yet it is only when they all work together that whatever we put in our hands to be successful. I'm reading from The Only Planet of Choice, Essential Briefings from Deep Space, transceiver Phyllis V Schlemmer, edited by Mary Bennett. A provocative mind-opening experience according to James J. Huttak. This is now chapter 12, and it's entitled Ancient Egypt. Egypt, from the Nine's perspective, would appear to have been born out of the demise of the Alrian venture. For humankind, Egypt, together with Sumer, remained fascinating examples of high civilizations which suddenly appeared in the region around the middle of the 4th millennium BC. It is speculation that such a body of knowledge that both Egypt and Sumer possessed was taught to them rather than developed by them. This chapter is full of astonishing, sometimes controversial findings and information. Reading with care and patience would be beneficial. There is more than meets the eye in many of the sentences. Page 155. This is question and answers. Andrew, is it true, according to Platonic legend, that some of the Atlanteans then brought the desirable elements of the Atlantean civilization to Egypt? For example, I'm very curious about the legend of Horus and the winged disc, in which he would appear in what was called a flying disc. Tom answers for the collective. He arrived in a spacecraft. Remember that he was not birthed. In that time he went all over in what you would call a spacecraft. The Alteans were masters of that, and then they went beyond spacecraft, and in their mind they learned how to travel without a craft. Horus, Tehuti, Isis, and other leaders taught them. Andrew, what were the arrangements between Tehuti and Isis and Horus came together in Egypt to start a new civilization? What were the arrangements whereby Tehuti and Isis and Horus came together in Egypt to start a new civilization? Tom, they all came simultaneously. Do you understand that they were able to be in different places at one time? Horus came to Egypt and Isis went to Ur. And others were in other places, but they also could be simultaneously together in each place. Andrew, I see, they were interchangeable. How very interesting. Now, many historians have noticed the similarity of the cultures of Ur and Egypt. Other people have noticed that there was a similarity also with the Chinese culture. Tom, that is correct. They were founded by the same people. Andrew, and who was involved in China? Tom, the one who had been in the place near South America. Each of them was able to simultaneously be in any place. Andrew, I see. And what other places on Earth were simultaneously being developed at that time? Tom, it was only the 3 places, and it was from these 3 that advanced cultures then spread all around the globe. John, I'm very interested in the Great Pyramid and its meaning. Tom, it was the Sphinx that had more to do with the beginning of Egypt. When the day arrives, when there is understanding upon the planet, and when the arrival of other civilization happens to help the planet, then that will be the day when the full secrets of what you ask will be given. In 1976, Andrew had asked several questions about the pyramids, which Tom did answer. Andrew, we've had some questions about the Great Pyramid. Could you tell us who first built it? Tom, it was in conjunction. Hoover, Ashan, Altea, and also the civilization of Myrex. It was 4 civilizations that raised it. When you asked who built it, you're speaking of the 24 civilizations. Andrew, does that mean that humans did not have any part in the building? Tom, they had a great part in the building. The engineering, the programming was done by the 4 civilizations. The attempting to transfer and transmit the knowledge came from the civilizations. Stonehenge also came from the civilizations, yes? Andrew, and could you give us the dates when the Great Pyramid was started and when it was completed? Tom, the Great Pyramid, and there were others that were of similar nature, was begun in a time before the destruction of Altea. It was begun approximately 150 years before the destruction of Altea, 13,000 of your years ago, in the colony in which it had begun. Then, approximately 7,000 years ago, additions were made, and then it was completed. Andrew, was it originally of a flat-top structure, and then completed as a pyramid, or was it designed originally as a pyramid? Tom, it was originally designed to be a triangle. It was not completed, though, for a great length of time. It took, from the beginning until completion, because of destruction and changes, 6,000 years. Andrew, I see. I climbed into a very secret part of the Great Pyramid, the chambers above the King's Chamber, and I found and photographed the signature of the pharaoh Khufu, in brackets, Cheops. Was he the one who completed that particular part of the structure? Tom, it was completed before. The understanding came to him. Andrew, you mean the understanding of what the pyramid is about? Tom, yes. Khufu was the reincarnation of the hawk. Andrew, and when did he live? What was the year? Tom, Altea has said that it was 6,257 years before the Nazarene. Andrew, yes, thank you. And could you tell us, in whatever way you wish, what the purpose was for building the pyramid, and what is its inner secret that people are so concerned about? Tom, partly it is the regeneration of cells. It changes the energy from the civilization. The Great Pyramid and other pyramids spiral in energy upwards. But also the civilization bring energies into planet Earth through the pyramids. In the chambers of the pyramids, there are areas which are what you would call rejuvenation chambers. They do the preservation of cells. There's more to them, but of this we cannot speak at this time. John, yes, the other two pyramids beside the Great Pyramid, they are from much later. From what date are they? Tom, they came approximately 1,500 to 2,000 years after the completion. Andrew, when was the legendary Tower of Babel? Tom, that was in Ur, after the destruction of Atlantis. Ur was a colony from Atlantis. Its existence was within 200 years of the existence of Pharaoh Khufu. Its destruction was 3,000 years later. Yes? In 1991, Tom answered some more questions about the pyramid. Mickey, some years ago I asked you when would be a good time that you would reveal the secret of the pyramids. So today I ask again whether you can reveal the secret of the pyramids. Tom, the answer comes at this time. Your circulations... John, crop circles do you mean? Tom, yes, upon this planet Earth in relationship to you, in arrangement for your planet Earth, in the maintenance of rotations. The pyramid energy was purposeful in emitting energy for what was circulating about your planet Earth. Once the pyramid contained upon it elements of crystal that emanated an energy outward. The crystal was removed by humankind in their non-thinking mode of operation. In that removal, they created a difficulty for the generation of unnecessary energy for its purpose. Is that clear? David, when you said about the energy of circulation of the Earth, what does that mean? Tom, have not there visited upon Earth now in recent times those rings? David, yes, crop circles. John, there are further questions about how the pyramids were built, and were they built principally by people from other civilizations with the help of people from planet Earth, or was it done entirely by other civilizations? Tom, people of Earth were of marginal importance in understanding the formula for creating the structure, when humankind... Is there a word debased? John, yes, when humankind debased. Tom, through non-understanding the purpose of its interaction, much of the memory was closeted. John, yes, one other subject relating to that. The pyramids in Mexico, were they built for the same purpose and in the same way, or were they humans attempting to copy? Tom, there were some created for the observation of those they call gods, to help them come to create an energy field that released sound and color waves upon Earth, and there were, how would you say, I know not. There in your native beings the desire to bring blessings from the heavens, and so the people then create what they believe will bring it down. Guest, a number number of people I know of are going to the Great Pyramid to see if they can contribute to opening up its energy. Is this the correct time to do that? Tom: they may open the door a portion, but if it were opened more, it would amount to a flooding of energy, and humankind would not comprehend completely. Guest: I understand. Also, I would like some clarification on how the great blocks of stone were placed in the Great Pyramid. It is my feeling that it was through the use of crystals that the stones were able to be placed on the pyramid. Tom: it was with the benefit of crystal, with the benefit of vocal sound tuned to crystal, with the sound of Om. Do you understand? Guest: yes, I had a vision of being sort of on the top of the stone, and under someone's command and direction the stone was lifted and placed into place by the system. Is this correct? Yes. However, there were many voices. On March the 22nd, 1993, the researchers announced the discovery of a narrow shaft, so small that they had to use a remote-controlled camera to explore it. The shaft was closed off by a secret door. Andrew: how much of the knowledge from Atlantis was given to the early Egyptian? Tom: it was given to the early Egyptians, including the knowledge of medicine, with the exception of the knowledge of what could be done with the sex organs. Also, you must understand that the primitive people with whom they worked in the land of Egypt were very fearful people, because of their simplicity and their unconscious recollection of the destruction, and so they built upon their belief structure a great system of worship. Also, they worshipped those that were not of such a good nature. They chose not to mention this, and made them look good out of fear of being harmed. Andrew: so, for example, Isis was, as I understand it, seen as the consort of Ra, who was one of those not-so-good ones, and whom we are talking? Tom: this is true. Andrew: and Horus was seen as the son of Ra and Isis. So my question is, where does the Hathor goddess figure come in? Because she seems so much like Isis to us in many ways. Tom: the goddess Hathor was a goddess of the right and of the night. What you would call a lady of the night. She was a lady that was a consort of all the gods. Sorry, I lost my space there. She was a lady that was a consort of all the gods. She was a lady of the evening. You have ladies of the evening in this nation in which you exist. Is it the same? Andrew: how did she become identified in literature as being the wife of Horus? Tom: she was the wife, but of all the gods. Of all the gods. She was given a position by the people because she was powerful and because she could control the gods. And there was fear that if they did not worship, there would then be destruction. Andrew: and then there was Sekhmet, a fire goddess. How did Sekhmet, as another feline, relate to Isis and Hathor? These functions are very hard for us. Tom: they were actually sisters. Andrew: I see. And Nephthys, housekeeper to Osiris and friend of the dead, was she in the same category? Tom: it was only the goddess, Hathor, that controlled the rest, or attempted to. When people did not listen, then she controlled the gods. It is difficult to explain because you do not understand what she was brought from the Altean age. It is difficult to explain because you do not understand what was brought from the Altean age. Andrew: yes, I was going to ask whether Hathor came from the Altean age, or whether she came from Atima or Hoover, or where. What's her origin? Tom: she was not from Atima, but her knowledge was. It was her knowledge of the physical control of others. She came from a species that has been a species for most of existence, because it was a mingling of all the civilizations of the universe. They have the strongest desires for goodness, but also the strongest of the physical desires in all the universe. Andrew: well, is she a member of the opposition, or... We don't quite even understand these things. Tom: she had all the goodness and all the desires. It is two beings. John: it's a total mixture of both. Tom: it may be used by others as it may be used by us. It is a sacrifice. It is a temptation. Do you understand? Andrew, and became kind of law in the universe. Tom, how else would we weed out the physical desires of people and beings and species? If you be trapped in desires and it sucks you dry, then you are lost. Is that not true? We speak here to those that exist on this planet. Andrew, now I understand. Yes, okay, and then that's our function. Tam, of the goddess Hathor. It has always been, all the days. Andrew, there is an Indian goddess who is perhaps more appropriate. She's called Shiva. Tom, it is always one and the same. Andrew, but Shiva is more clearly spelled out in our literature. Hathor is a mysterious figure. Tom, do you understand why? Because in Egypt they wanted to placate Hathor in their minds so they could believe she would only help them. Thus they made her the wife of the gods. Andrew, thank you for all these things. John, I would like to run through the sequence of transference of civilization after the downfall of Atlantis. You told us, I believe, that the Sumerian was the first civilization thereafter, but I am trying to arrange in order the Greek, the Chinese, the Egyptian, and the Sumerian civilization, and their periods after Atlantis. Tom, at the time of the destruction of Atlantis, there were colonies. There was first Summer, there was a secondly China. They were meeting at times between the two. Do you understand? There was also Egypt at the time. The Greek culture came last, after the Egyptian. It was not simultaneous with Ur and Egypt. John, yes, the Greeks retained the Atlantean legends more than the others, it appears. Is that correct? Tom, it is truth. Because of the channeling through Plato. Plato was given impressions which prodded his mind to ring bells in the head. John, yes, when you say the channeling of Plato, I have heard that Socrates was the channel and Plato was the one who recorded this. Is that correct? Tom, it was Socrates, but it was the interpretation of Plato which was important. If the full information were given in detail, it would lead to confusion and misunderstanding. But by giving pieces, through assimilation of these pieces, and further research and discussion, the knowledge is gained. John, and the man-animal figures of both Greek and Egyptian cosmology? Tom, they came from Atlantis. John, is that the experimentation? Tom, yes. John, in the time of the first Greek civilizations, were there any visits at all by the higher civilizations? Tom, yes, the gods. John, well, I understood that the Greek mythology that we have was from an earlier time. Tom, from Egypt and from Atlantis. But do you understand that Greece also had a visitation from Althea? John, I didn't know that. What form did that take? Was that in space vehicles? Tom, if people had the knowledge of a flame, it came as a flame. Steve, I'd like to know what mythological characters such as Mercury, Apollo, Diana, and such, were they actually physical existent beings on planet Earth at some time, or are they, as Jung says, archetypes of the unconscious? Tom, they were physical beings, but archetypal. Steve, in my investigations of correspondences with your communications, I have come upon the Gnostic philosophers, a group of thinkers in the early Christian period, and it seems that many of their ideas correspond to ideas in the communications, particularly the name aeons, which I understand has been used for reference to the nine. Are these correspondences correct? Tom, yes. Steve, the name aeons refers to the nine. Tom, that I am the spokesman for, yes. Steve, and so, these revelations, when they appear in the Gnostic literature, are previously channeled? Tom interrupts, yes. Steve, communications, and are correct. Tom, yes. The knowledge was given to a few, as the knowledge of this time is given to a few. In that time it was only a very few, but now the exception being that in this time it must be given to the masses. It is a point of reference for validation. Steve, yes, I found these correspondences very impressive. Tom, much truth was destroyed to keep the masses in control. Steve, you're speaking presumably of the religions, the churches suppressing the Gnostic revelation. Tom, people and organizations of government and religion do not suppress anything unless it is a threat to them. Or is it a truth? Is that not so? And then later, referring to the demise of civilization, Tom said, there was the collapse of the first arrival in Aksu, and then there was the collapse of what you call Atlantis, and then the collapse of Egypt, And then, if you continue, there was the collapse of many of Earth's civilizations. Have you now discovered why they have all collapsed? Andrew: well, presumably it has been when desire has overcome the higher evolutionary movement of the soul. Is that not so? Tom: that is part of the truth. But also, around 11,000 BC, going back to the Nine of Atlantis, the other groups of beings that were colonized were then mingled with those of Hoover. That was the beginning of what you call the Hebrew culture. Andrew: oh, that far back, I see. And would that have started not in Atlantis, but in Ur, or am I wrong in that assumption? Did they start before the period of Ur? Tom: they were before the period of Ur. Andrew: and who was the leader of this Hebrew colony? Tom: it was of 4 generations of Abraham. So, the beginnings of the Hebrew culture were a mixture of Hovets and these other beings, and this accounts for the characteristics of the Jewish people? Tom: yes. John: I thought that there were no survivors of Atlantis. Tom: no, there were colonies that were not destroyed. Andrew: I thought they went on to be dolphins. Tom: those that were destroyed, that were not in error, became dolphins. Andrew: that's beautiful. John: and those that were in error, were their souls annihilated at that time? What happened? Tom: how can you annihilate a soul? You can only pray and hope for it. That was the end of chapter 11.